Hello and good afternoon, good morning and good evening to everybody else kind of watching worldwide, and welcome to episode number 6 of Call Center Confidence with Cutter and Catt. However, today it's just Catt. Cutter, Jason, my business partner for Call Center Confidence, is watching live somewhere in the world as we speak right now. However, he currently has the worst internet in the world and is unable to live stream. So today we're going to mix things up a bit. Now, we're still talking about training. We're going to continue our conversation from last week. However, a lot of that I'm going to save for next week when Jason is back online, because I know he wants to share his thoughts and his ideas and his kind of emotions around training, because I know that was the topic last week, and this caused a lot of questions from a lot of people out there. So I know we've received some messages about the training episode that we were running and what we were doing. However, what we are going to do today is we're going to mix things up a little bit, and we are going to be bringing a few people up onto the episode to talk about their experiences, to talk about their kind of challenges that they faced previously in the past, and their thoughts on how training can move forward in the world of today, whether it be through technology, whether it be through classroom, whatever it be, because there is so much to talk about. So last week, just to recap, we started talking about induction training, and we were talking about onboarding. We were talking about life cycles and tenured agents coming in, existing, brand new, how long they were lasting for into training, and what made a successful agent throughout that induction training, and also what kind of turned those agents off in the process and why we churned some of those agents. So far, I'm going to be bringing up 2 panelists to start with our conversation. And the first one is a gentleman that I worked with many moons ago back in the UK, and that is Mr. Rich Edge. If I bring him online there. Rich, how you doing, buddy? Are you good?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to see you. Thanks very much for joining last minute and short notice. Really appreciate you coming on. And also, not to mention, someone who has audio only because they're currently at work is none other than my wife, Mrs. Alexandra Catt. Alex, are you there? Can you hear me? I'm trying to unmute you, but I can't unmute you for some reason. Technology always works when you're live, right? All right. And that's not working. I'll wait for her to get audio sorted and come back online. So, Rich, how are you doing? Are you good?
I am very well, thanks, Catt. It has been a long time, many years. I've been knocking around the contact center industry now for longer than I care to mention, probably over 20 years or so now. I've been following what you and Cutter have been doing. Loving the show, by the way. I think it's very informative. And you know what? So, some of the stuff I already know, and some of the stuff sort of reinforces the things that I think I've forgotten. But then picking up the pieces, as you know, all of your new experience is absolutely perfect. So I'm actually loving the show. So keep it going.
No, thank you. And, you know, one of the things that we say to kind of everybody as we kind of go through these episodes, these series, is it's important to be clear that, you know, it's a market, it's a niche that there's not a lot of people out there doing. And it was kind of how we came up with this concept in the first place, because we want to help everybody. And there's no fee, there's no charges, there's no call to actions. And we want as many people's experience as possible to come on here. And I think, you know, as we go through this, and one of the things that we've stipulated from day one, it's for everybody. We're talking about training. We're going to be talking more about recruitment. I know leadership is something that we're getting requested on week in and week out. And we kind of started the first couple of episodes on leadership. So we are going to come back round to that at some point. So, you know, it's all of these different things all in one. And right now we want to talk about training. And Rich, thank you very much for kind of listening into the last few episodes. It's great that you were kind of part of last week. And I remember you commenting because this week we can kind of talk about it a little bit more and kind of get your thoughts and feelings on the situation, especially in the contact center environment. So kind of jumping in and not to put you on the spot or anything like that, you know, what would you say is good practice, or what have you seen or witnessed previously that's been good practice when agents have gone through any type of call center training historically that you think's worked well, that you think people could still use today, that people maybe are still using today? What's good practice in your mind?
I mean, to caveat this, I'm not a trainer. Yeah, I run on sort of project management, but training has been throughout and is so key to everything within the contact center. Everything that I do, any new initiative, whether it's a new campaign, a new product, whatever it is, training is absolutely essential. I have seen all sorts of training in all sorts of different outsourcers, good, bad, and indifferent. The difference that quality training makes just to start off with the agents is absolutely paramount. If the training, these guys that are starting within the contact center or moving over to a different campaign, if the training quality isn't there, if the trainer actually doesn't have the skills to be able to impart that information, it's so difficult for those guys to onboard the information and actually to be the best that we all know that they want to be. So there's various aspects for me. One, the quality of the training needs to be absolutely key. Training isn't for everybody. Training is a skill. Being able to impart information with enthusiasm in a way that people can absorb it and utilize it and retain it is a skill. It's not my forte. I've seen it done really well. So one of the things for me is absolutely preparation in the training material. Death by PowerPoint you were talking about last week. Oh, we've all seen it. We've all seen it, and you can see people's eyes just glaze over. Nothing's going in. Nothing's being retained. It's not working, and so it doesn't work for the agent. It doesn't work for the company, and it certainly doesn't work for the customer, because the poor customer that's on the other end of that, when they come out of training, they're not getting the best experience. So the quality of the training for me is absolutely key. I saw some fantastic training the other day. I won't mention the company, but it was induction training that we were running. So I brought the clients on board, and they did a piece for an hour about their company. It was interactive. It had video in it. They were excited. It was day one, hour two, because I was the first hour, and everybody was sparked, ready to go and absorb that information. They were excited about what they were about to undertake with their training. So quality of training for me, make it interactive, make it fun, absolutely key. Got to hit the mark. So that, I think, the quality piece is absolutely my number one. When I view it, you can turn off in the first 10 seconds.
Brilliant. I think that's a great answer, and I think you've touched on so many key points with that kind of answer there. I mean, the first one, death by PowerPoint, I think everybody can speak to that one when they've been sat through training or they've been delivery training. That's something that shouldn't happen from day one. But getting that enthusiasm, getting that energy, day two, hour one, hour two, hour three on day one, that's where it's at. And if you can capture that moment, that's fantastic. And especially when you say about it being interactive with video content, it makes such a difference. And also, it's welcoming for these new people coming through the business on day one. They don't know what to expect. They probably started off working. And one of the things out there, we all know that, people within call center, they job hop. They jump from one to the other to the other. So they probably sat through day one at 3 or 4, maybe 5 other contact centers in the past. So it's important to empower and kind of give that message straight off the bat to really kind of make a difference. I think one thing that you kind of touched on or alluded to is you said training is not for everybody. I remember when I was delivering training in the first couple of years that I was kind of doing it, that everybody went to me, oh, training looks like so much fun. Oh, everybody wants to be a trainer. Everybody wants to do that thing because they see the fun part, the fun side of training. And I think you hit the nail on the head by saying it's not for everybody, because it's not. There is so much work that goes into the back end, understanding what you're delivering, being able to answer every question that you're asked, or at least, putting a pin in it and coming back to it later if you're not sure. You have to know more than the person doing the job at the end of the day that you're training, because you have to be able to memorize everything. I remember working for a client back in 2012, and I think it was around about the time we were working together. And I had a manual that was that thick, page to page, that I had to learn cover to cover, because I was doing a 2-week training course for people that had to know every ounce of information, because this client was absolutely on the button with what information their agents were talking about over the phones. And it's a tough job. It's not easy. And I don't really want to kind of dwell on trainers that kind of don't do the job well, but have you witnessed any trainers that don't deliver, and kind of what was the fallout from that? Have you noticed any kind of bad experiences? The look on your face.
Yeah, you see it, as a PM, I'm a bit of a perfectionist as well, and I want things to go well. It's all about sort of planning. I have seen it go south. I mean, and to be fair, there were a lot of average trainers, not dissing the industry at all. There were some fantastic ones, but when training goes wrong, the impact to the agents, they become ill prepared. The questions don't get answered, or if they tend to have a lot of questions, but they don't get succinctly answered, and in the end, the agents give up answering the questions. So then they go away not really understanding what they should understand. That has a knock-on effect to the agent's confidence, especially if it could potentially be, their first role in a contact center. It has a knock-on effect through whether they'll last, their quality, the customer service that they're providing. The KPIs and SLAs can be low. It's if the training element and the support, the post-go live support pieces aren't correct, everybody loses. The agent loses because they don't have the confidence and the knowledge and skills to do their job, which is our job to empower them to do that. The companies and the clients lose because we're not delivering the level of service of excellence that we should be. And the customer loses because they're not getting the experience that they deserve. So the knock-on effect, it is huge. It has to be right. Yeah, imparting of information and the skill set, the essential skills that agents require to excel, is our sort of responsibility as the management to ensure that we are enabling them to deliver that excellence in customer service, which the majority of people can do. It's a skill they can learn. And let's not forget, this is a skill that I remember being on the phones years ago. You learn things on the phones that you can't learn anywhere else.
Yep.
Yeah? Your communication skills just start to explode. And you could be quite young at this point. And, dealing with difficult customers, there's nothing better than resolving somebody's problem. They come on and it's Mr. Angry and this has gone wrong and that's gone wrong. And by the time you've finished, they're not only thanking you, you've resolved their issue, you've empowered yourself, you've done the right thing by the customer, and you feel great yourself. You only learn those skills being in a contact center. Yeah. And that's just the start of it, as because they can go on to be management and all sorts of other things. So it all starts with training. Yeah, training is knowledge and power, and it's empowering the agents to do their job. That's what training is all about. And it could be, they could be their first job, it could be an enhancement, they could be moving into sales, whatever it is. Training them and empowering them to be able to have the skills and knowledge to do their job and grow their skills is the job of the trainer. It's absolutely fundamental.
I couldn't. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think you're absolutely right with every point that you raised there, because it does impact everybody, and that's something that everybody out there listening today or listening after the show we've gone live, needs to remember. We talk about all of these costs associated with training and how much we spend on recruitment and bringing people in. There's also the cost that you don't see. And Rich, you kind of brought it up there about the impact on the managers, the support, the fact that, HR maybe got to go and recruit again and things like that. There's all of these hourly costs, these budgeting costs that we don't account for because we expect them into day to day. So it can cost so much money if training isn't done right or if training isn't delivered the right way. So I suppose that begs the question, and a lot of people are out there, is how do we make sure that trainers are the right fit for the business? Now, there's no sure way to find out. And I think, I can contest that. I remember going for my first fully fledged training role after, being seconded into training for many times working in call centers. And eventually I kind of stepped up and thought, do you know what? I'm going to go for that role. I want that role. And I will hand it out to two people in particular that took a chance on me. They took an absolute gamble. They didn't know whether I was a good trainer or a bad trainer. And there are so many factors that I learned, especially when interviewing trainers in my kind of tenure, to make sure that they were out there delivering the right message, or out there delivering the right content that we have to look at. So for me, and again, Rich, I know you've worked in an operational capacity and you look at all of this from kind of the oversight. In your opinion, what makes a good trainer? What do you think are the qualities of a trainer that could deliver the right message in the contact center environment? I'm putting you on the spot with that question there, but I'd love to hear your insights.
That's a great question. Okay, so just from my opinion, the characteristics of a great trainer, and there are many, and it's very varied as well. And I think that maybe that's why it's difficult to be a great trainer, because the skills you require are many and varied. We said about preparation, actually having the vision to take that information, assimilate it, and deploy it in a particular method that is understandable and achievable. Because quite often that big manual that you've got given is very dry. Now you've got to make it exciting, informative, and something that they can absorb and repeat. So having the ability to take information, decide how I'm going to present it, how the best way to present it to ensure that it's going to hit the mark. And that could be all sorts of different mediums. That could, you could be doing active demonstrations on the system. It could be practical demonstrations. It could be participation. There's, we've done with stuff in the past, and they're actually sitting in a kitchen, looking at stuff, going through things, whatever it is, that product piece. How are we going to get them excited about the product? It's all different. Is it video? Is it, is it location based? It can be all sorts of different things. So for a skill to actually be able to take information, decide how to disseminate it, create it, there's a whole creation piece here. And that's not just IT skills, that could be video skills, presentation skills, all that sort of stuff. And then package it up. Packaging it up and ensuring that the delivery is correct, and you're feeding the information in a particular way that continually reinforces the previous messages. Mm-hmm. It ties it in, because it's like the book. When you're writing a book, you've got to understand roughly what it's about. You can't just do it, wing it as you go along, because something halfway through is going to refer back to something at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And understanding the journey of that piece of training for the agent actually makes that a fantastic piece of training. That's what, like a fantastic film. It's the same thing. It's a craft. Yep. So I think there's presentation skills, there's creation skills, but then on top of that, you've got to have you've got to be a people person for a start. You're going to be meeting lots of different people, lots of different names, and the same with any sort of form of management. Everybody's different. So all of those guys that are sitting in front of you, looking at you, you're about to give them some information, learn in different ways. They have different styles. They learn at different speeds. You've got to pin all of this together and ensure that they're all engaged. So, there's communication skills there, there's delivery skills, there's creation skills, and enthusiasm. So maybe that's just some.
I think you just summed it up in a overall package ready for Christmas. There was some absolute golden nuggets right there, and I think you're absolutely right, because there are so many skills that are required to be that trainer. And I think the one that stands out for me is, as you said, you're stood there, people are watching you, they're ready to take on all that information. All of those skills that you just mentioned have to come out when you open your mouth. They have to come out when you stand there, when you hold your posture, when you present to the screen. Because if you're not engaging, if you're not happy, if you're not smiley, people are going to switch off. And I've sat there in certain training classrooms and I've watched trainers and I've gone, are you really delivering content to people? Are these people listening to everything that you're saying. And maybe that's me. Maybe that's my judgment, and kind of how I set my own expectations against everything else. And there are so many different factors. A comment from Stephen, which I'm putting on the screen now, is train the trainers and measures on their outcomes in terms of success of their agents. Now, Stephen, look, I think you're absolutely right. I think for me, so many people can take this different ways, and I've seen people go, well, hang on a minute, so what's the outcome of training? Let's mark happy sheets, at the end of training. Did you like the trainer? And I know this is not what you're referring to, but did they do a good job? Were they engaging? Were they entertaining? For me, and Rich, I don't know what your thoughts are, but for me, happy sheets are never really kind of a key metric. And the reason why I say that is if you catch one of your delegates on the wrong day who's unhappy, who's miserable, who's not had lunch yet, who's thirsty and they want sweets, they're just going to tick negative for everything. So for me, and like I say, I know that's not what you're talking about, Stephen. Happy sheets are there. And if you disagree with me, anybody watching out there or anybody afterwards, please send us a message about happy sheets for different results. Because like I say, they're either going to be completely negative. I always send out kind of happy sheets after I've hosted training with a client to get feedback. And 9 times out of 10, it's all great. It's all happy because everyone's had a good time. So, you can never really go off a real key metric for that. But the point that I believe Stephen is making, which I really want to refer to, is train the trainers and measure their outcomes in terms of success of their agents. And Stephen, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I'm assuming you're getting at is the fact that the deliverables once these agents are out on the phones. And Rich, I don't know if you kind of read that into that message exactly the same way. I'll bring it back up on the screen again. But for me, I'm reading that as and interpreting that as training is finished. I am now live. I am now doing my job in customer experience, in sales, whatever it might be. And now I have to deliver my metrics in terms of customer performance. Am I getting a good NPS score? Am I getting a good CSAT score? Am I getting the sales numbers that I need to get in? And am I doing the right job? Would you read into that way, Rich, or would you take it another way?
Yeah, I would. I'd agree with all of that. I have a point of view, and you brought it up when you remember we were talking about recruitment. Yeah. So if I'm running a contact center and I've got a whole lot of new agents hitting the floor. Yeah. I've seen poor recruitment and it's made my life hell. I've seen poor training and made my life hell. So when they arrive, there's 2 pieces for me because there's 3 sets of management. I've got recruitment, I've got training, and then I've got the team managers, which is obviously my remit. So then if recruitment is wrong, I'm now managing, or training is wrong. If training or recruitment is wrong, I'm now managing and spending all my time, all my TMs are spending 80% of their time managing the poor performers, either because of recruitment or because of poor trainers, who we have to retrain, redoing work, lots more support. So either they shouldn't be there in the first place because the recruitment was wrong, so we've got the wrong people in the wrong place, or if the training was poor, then I'm spending so much time and effort and money trying to support those agents to get them to where we need them to be. Now, the consequence of that, if my managers are spending 80% of their time supporting those 20% of the poorest performers, what if we had the right people with the right training and they hit the floor, and my managers are spending 80% of their time supporting the best people and also making sure that we're actually lifting the bar for the lower performers as well, but they're concentrating on making our better people better. The quality and everything starts to go up. So this is why I said the training is the fundamental. If it's wrong, oh boy, we've got a problem. So it's not siloed in a contact center. It's a team game. It's always a team game. You've got a team with team managers. The management structure within a contact center is a whole piece. All of the departments, every single department in the contact center are there for one reason. They're there to support the agents. The agents are the most important people in the business. They are the front line between us and the customer. That's it. So every department is underneath an agent. Yeah. When you get down to the MDs and the owners, they're down here somewhere. We're all here for one job, to support the agents to deliver. But if you have a failure in recruitment and training, well, now we've got a problem because we're spending all of our time not doing what we should be doing in our day job. We're now managing outliers.
Yeah.
So,
and that's something that I think falls on a lot of people's shoulders. And it's not something that happens in this call center here and this call center here. I think every center that I've worked in, somewhere along the line, something like that has happened or is happening. And it's not something that people do on purpose. I don't think it's anything that's kind of malicious. I just think it's a gap in the process somewhere that needs fixing. And just referring back to Stephen, obviously he just kind of picked up and went, here it goes. He said, measure the weeks and months ahead of all the activities, the success rates. And when we were talking about it more, he actually messaged again saying exactly about what we're doing. So thank you very much, Stephen. Again, please feel free to make any comments. Anybody else out there who's watching and listening in. I think this, it's a very important topic. And I think, yes, when you are managing those poor performance and you spend your time focusing on those kind of poor areas, you don't allow the rest of your contact center to thrive. And we talk about the trainers doing this, and I don't necessarily think it's always their fault, because something for me that always stands out, and I've spoken to a lot of clients recently about it, specifically their in-house training team, is that more often than not, there's a gap somewhere within their training team. And what I mean by that is, I've worked in contact centers before as an in-house trainer. I was hired to go in there and do a job, whether it was CX, whether it was sales, whether it was tech support, whether it was a magnitude of any other reasons. And over time, a trainer's role evolves because they want you to go into different areas or different elements of the business. I'm going to talk about a company I worked for a few years back. And I went in there as kind of an entry-level sales trainer, more focusing on kind of customer service and account management. And then I was kind of thrust into the sales environment, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I watched all the other salespeople, and this is where I learned my scale skills from, was actually being thrown in at the deep end. And I had to start training field reps. I had to start training outbound cold callers, and I hadn't got these skills. So it begged the question was I kind of failing at what I was doing? Was I thrust upon something, or should the company have invested in my development? And it's something that I see quite a lot of at the minute, and clients that I'm speaking to, and I don't know, Rich, if you've kind of run into this, is do your trainers get training? Are they supported from outside learning and development partners? And have you witnessed that? And have you seen it work? And have you seen it not work? I've witnessed some companies that bring in yearly external trainers to support in a train-the-trainer environment where, they're learning new skills or new methodologies and theories that are out there in the world that people are using. But at the same time, I've seen companies that have hired a trainer. The trainer's been the trainer for the last 5, 6, 7 years within the company, and they've never received training themselves. Have you witnessed that?
Yeah, it's you know what, it's a very mixed bag out there. You've got everyone sort of comes in from different sort of angles. I've seen people come in and literally they've gone through the floor, they've gone through agents to TMs, and then they've migrated into training, and that's absolutely fine. But as you rightly said, a lot of time you arrive somewhere and they go, off you go, and you go, right, and there's no support there. So somebody's reinventing the wheel here. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you've got people that come in with a training background. Yep. That tends to work very well because they've gone through the process, and they've actually got that they've gone through courses and education, so so they've got the basis of all the training. It can be taught, you can learn it, but a lot of the time I do find that outsourcers do not tend to train their trainers, and if they are provided training, it tends to be very piecemeal. So it might be something that happens on a very infrequent basis. But likewise, there are companies out there that understand the importance of training. I do a lot of I did a lot of consultancy work in many different countries, and a lot of the time, anything that I was doing, it says, right, where are we? You can decide what it is that you want to do. You can decide where you want to be, there's always this element of training. It's like that's the focus in the middle, because you can know what you want to do. You can know when you're successful at it. It all boils down to that training element. So making sure that the trainers understand what it is that needs to be delivered and are qualified for it is absolutely key. Now, most of the time, I found they're not qualified for it at all, because when they're good at it, it's because they have a natural ability to communicate, and they've learned it on the job. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah. But I would love to see companies invest in their people more. And if companies understand, if contact centers truly understand the importance of training and the difference that it can make on the output, their KPIs and SLAs, the world will be a better place. Yeah. So it's training the trainer. I would love to see more money behind that in the budget for contact centers. I think it is essential. If you find the right trainer, they'll absorb this stuff, and it will pay in spades going out to the agents all the time.
You bring up a very good point, and I want to just kind of dig a little deeper on that. Is yes, 100%. I completely agree with you in the sense that it will reward, it will show its worth, and the return on investment will be exponential. But to anybody listening out there who is running a call center, who is managing a call center, putting yourself in the operational standpoint that you're in, and that you've been in those positions before, running those contact centers, if somebody came to you and presented their delivery package, what they were going to do, what they were going to deliver, how they were going to change and help and support your trainers, and they gave you the proposal that looked great, but 9 times out of 10, very similar, is a lot of contact centers will turn around and go, I haven't got the budget for it, which they all do, or you're far too expensive. What's your take on that? Have you ever been in that situation where somebody's given you a proposal and you've turned around and just gone, in an outsourcing world, as we all know, where money is tight and budgets are very tight, what would you say to anybody doing that? Or let's look at it both ways. Somebody out there who's listening who wants to pitch their training, what would you suggest to them? And somebody who is receiving that pitch, what would you suggest to them? Any thoughts on that?
Okay, so we all, as people who have seen trainers, whether you are training yourself or whether you're a recipient of it, you know what good training looks like. Yeah, even if you're pitching training to an outsourcer, the return on the investment is what they're looking for. They need to see a gap between what they're currently doing and what you're offering. Yeah, if you can provide sufficient gap and excitement, your quid's in. It's definitely not a foregone conclusion, because outsourcing, the budgets are very tight. Yeah, you might even find they go, that's some fantastic ideas, and then they go and recreate them in-house, which is always the risk. But you need to be able to demonstrate a difference. Yeah, as with anything, if you're going to pitch something that a company's already doing, what value am I going to give? What's the return on the investment? If you believe that you can deliver the training at a sufficiently high level in a particular way, and you've got that USP to drive that, then go as hard as you can. The better the training we can actually get into the contact center, the better. From a recipient's perspective, most of the time, obviously, is all the training stuff is in-house. The pitches don't come from external. In my experience, the majority of it's all internal, and budgets are tight. There's no doubt about it. That's where we have to work within the constraints of what we've got. Yes, we might not be able to have that flashy video, so we need to think of other ways, other creative ways within budget to get that message across. It's, I'm a firm believer, it's not all about how big a budget you've got depends on how well the training is. No, it's about the people. If you've got, you haven't got your whiteboards, you've got your flip charts and your pens, we need to find a creative way to get the same message across. Yeah, it'd be great if we had all of these flashy videos and stuff and could do all of this wonderful things. That's fine too. Every contact is different. Clients have different budgets, and we've got to pitch it at the right point. That does not mean that the training needs to be degraded because of it.
Yeah.
So most of the stuff for me, it's always been internal, and it's empowering the guys and making sure we've got the right trainers that have those abilities that can actually go, right, this is what we've got. And if I get an internal trainer that comes to me and says, you know what, I'd really like to be able to do this, I said, okay, so how much effort and time and money is that going to take? And what benefit is it going to give? And maybe it's something to do about the product itself, and goes, you know what, if we could get some of this in and they can actually get their hands on it and do this, that, and the other, even if there's a cost to it, then if you can sell me the return on the investment that is going to be so much different than if we don't have it, then usually we'll get it signed off.
Great answer. And I think you've been clear on both sides of the front there. And I think, there's a lot of information for people to take away. And like I say, if you're pitching your services, take away everything Rich just said there, because it's about, thinking about your audience. And remember, if you're pitching to an outsourcer, it's all about the budget. In-house, yes, they have the budget. I mean, I work with some amazing companies that have had budgets that have been exponential, but they still don't want to part with their money to bring out new ideas. So remember, when you're putting your proposals together, don't give everything away, but at the same time, make sure that you show them the return on investment that they're going to get. And in-house, a point that Rich brought up is speak to people. Speak to these external trainers out there and see if there is something that they can deliver to you that will make a difference. And remember, look, just a little investment, we talk about that investment up front, can actually return miles and miles and miles again, and can actually generate you more money in the process if you're supporting those teams, especially when it comes to one of my favorites, which we talk about a lot, is leadership training. I always find that in-house trainers get pushed into the leadership training kind of corner to go away and create leadership training, but maybe they've never been leaders themselves, or maybe they've never been in that experience to understand what kind of content they need to train a manager in. So again, it's something to always look at. Train your trainers or bring in external management training. It's something that is always a big topic. It's on our list. We will get to it one day, especially if you're training new managers, because one thing that we always talk about is when a manager is promoted because somebody's good at what they do, they don't always receive the training that they deserve, should I say, when they get promoted into that position. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Another question from Stephen coming up here is, how do you train away fear to new agents? Stephen, just I'm asking you to elaborate a little bit more on exactly what you're asking for. Are you talking about the fear of doing the job for the very first time, the fear of the role, or the fear of going into training? Just so we can kind of discuss that in a little bit more detail, but we'll come back to that question when you come onto it. So obviously, talking of that leadership training, have you been on the receiving edge where your leaders have never received training when they've been promoted?
Yeah. I mean, I've been quite lucky in the places that I've been, that the leadership training has been there for myself and others, and that works really well. But again, even in management, leadership training, some is fantastic, some isn't. Yeah. It's not just the domain of the agents that can sometimes get great or rough training. Actually, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, there's not much leadership training that I haven't been through of some guise or another. But I tell you what, there was one company that I worked for, and an American chap they got on board, and I went through a piece of leadership training with him, and he opened my eyes. I started off as like, okay, I've seen this before, and then all of a sudden he got my attention. He was delivering in a different way. He started talking about people's own progression and their career themselves, and actually things changed, and that it snapped for me when that's the training that I want. Yeah. And at that point I was absorbed, and I went to him and I got all sorts of different types of training. Absolutely fantastic. So the management training for me, if I've got a team, absolutely, their personal development and their training is absolutely key. You can't expect people to do a job that they haven't been trained to do. It's not fair, for one. Yeah. It's not empowering. It's like, agents, team managers, anybody in a business needs training and support. to bring out their best qualities. Yeah. At the end of the game, we say this is a team game, and it is a team game, and different people do different jobs, and you want to get them to do jobs that they're good at and they're interested in. And then you can empower them by supporting them to be even better in the things that they like to do. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a team. You're not forcing people to do things that, go and learn this Excel. I don't like Excel. I don't get on with it. But actually, I'm great at PowerPoint. But Bob here is fantastic at Excel. We'll put the two together, and you both do what you're good at, and you've got it all. It's all fantastic. Yeah. So, we need to be ensuring that we are providing our management with the skills, again, as with everything, the skills to do their job and to progress in what they want to do. They become more productive, they get more enjoyment out of the work, and everybody wins. And I'm always looking for that win-win-win, always. And it's always there. You've just got to know which buttons and levers to actually work.
Yeah, and I think, not everybody is proficient in every area that you expect them to be, as you say about Excel, PowerPoint, or whatever it is. And as you say, every job role always comes with that caveat at the bottom. And I've seen it on every single JD out there, every single job application. The last bullet point is proficient in Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And I think it's a given now on every application. But people don't understand what proficient in those areas are, especially when it comes to a leadership role. And I think the point I want to make on this is, I remember going into one of my first kind of leadership roles, and I thought I was proficient in Excel. And, you raised Excel a second ago. Boy, did I have my eyes opened when somebody showed me what Excel could really do. I knew how to create a column, how to add something up, how to put all my numbers in so I could move it over here and do whatever. And then when people came to me and said, well, what's the VLOOKUP on this? And, what's the COUNTIF? And I was like, so what? And I don't think job descriptions really kind of elaborate on how much proficiency in Microsoft Office you should have. There should be some kind of leveling skills out there, and people know what beginner, intermediate, and advanced actually means when it comes to Microsoft Office. But that's a great point. I love that you brought that up. Stephen, so you've just returned with your comment here. Yes, in outbound, the fear of intruding to the people that you are calling. If we recognize that we are, let me put it up on the screen. If we recognize that we are usually bringing new people into the job, then calling people can be frightening. Can we teach those agents not to fear it? Do you know what? Fear for me, and Rich, I don't know whether you agree with this or disagree with this, but fear for me is the unknown. And I will always say, we always fear what we don't know. So I think if you kind of understand what your customers' reactions are going to be, and we equip our outbound calling agents with the tools for, and this is something that's very much overlooked, objection handling techniques, what's going to be thrown at you, especially in an outbound environment. The rejections that you're going to experience. Nobody likes to be rejected. It's like asking somebody out on a date. Everybody's afraid of doing it because they're afraid of the word no. And it's the same with any kind of sales environment. And I hope I'm kind of touching on the point that you raise here is, yes, it can be frightening. Yes, it can be scary. And I think if we give our frontline agents, our frontline reps, field reps, sales reps, outbound, whatever it be, the tools they need to do their job adequately, then that fear will eventually dissipate. Now, don't get me wrong. There's always nerves when you're phoning somebody new for the very first time. There's always that, again, fear of rejection in there. But again, when you get used to it, I've worked with a lot of outbound reps specifically who just tone it out and just kind of put a block up to the rejection and carry on dialing and smile while you dial, and the classic call center words that we used to use, because you can't take your fear onto the next call with you, because otherwise it's just going to build and build and build. I don't know about you, Rich. What do you think in that environment? I think it's about tools and giving everybody the ability to do their job.
Everybody starts the same. Whenever you do anything new, it's you can be nervous, you can have fear. Yeah, it's a natural piece. And having agents, especially when they're starting out, understand that you need to empower them with the skills. and tools for the job, absolutely. But it's absolutely normal to actually have some anxiety and fear when you're starting something brand new. You do the same thing when you start to drive a car down a road or do anything. Yeah. First time you jump out of an aeroplane with a parachute, you're going to be nervous. It is human. And making sure that the agents understand, okay, so this is good. If they're brand new, not been on the phone before, this is all absolutely normal. No, absolutely normal. I was exactly the same. So is everybody else, right? This isn't a unique feeling for you, right? It's fine. What's going to happen is this, right? And, when they start making those initial calls, ensuring that they've got the support, that there's somebody there, there's somebody coaching, whether they're going through their grad bay or whatever we want to call it, to support them, and then is talking to them. And by continually running through, we all know that by the end of the day, they have now gained confidence. Mm-hmm. They have achieved. They might not be the most strong communicators, but all of a sudden now they've done something they haven't done before. They're becoming familiar with it. And if we give them the correct support, then they will overcome that fear. And that is a personal growth achievement for somebody actually starting out on the phones. And that learning curve to start with is tall, but boy, you don't half learn a lot. Yeah. But we've got to make sure we don't drop these people. It is our responsibility to ensure that we nurture them, we grow them to be the best communicators they can possibly be. So fear, yes, but it's normal and happens to us all. Yeah, that's absolutely good. But you know what? When you look at Sarah over there, she was very nervous. Look at her now. Yeah, she's helping people. And also, I think picking up on the other bit you said, Catt, about rejection, right? We got to understand, and one of the things. So I'm really into ensuring that people are given the tools and skills for the job. I think the essential skills of a contact center agent is absolutely key. Having them understand that every single call is the first call for the customer. Mm-hmm. Might not be the first call for you, whether it's inbound or outbound, but it's the first call for the customer. When you smile, when you dial, all of that sort of stuff. Your attitude and state of mind is going to make the difference whether you are an agent or a fantastic agent. Yeah. And this is all part of this skills learning curve. But fear, I have not seen people lose it over fear. If they get the correct support, they will grow and thrive.
Thank you very much. I think that summed up everything perfectly. And I think you're right there. And Stephen, hopefully we kind of answered your question as best as possible there, talking about all the ways that you can kind of overcome that. And again, if you want to find out any more, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Rich, I'm sure, will be available to comment on any other questions you've got, as have I. And Jason, who's tuning in somewhere from around the world. I want to say he's in Memphis. I have no idea where he is today, but he's somewhere with very bad internet. And just a reminder for all of you listening in, Jason will be back next week. Don't worry, because he's traveling about, and hotel internet is never the best. And also, Rich Edge, thank you very much for joining us. We're not going anywhere just yet. We're just going to wrap up in a few minutes' time. And I do want to touch on just a couple of final points here for those of you that are kind of listening into, especially kind of just surmise what we've really been speaking about today. And I think it's important to remember that if you have an in-house training team, if you are working with a group of trainers, it's important to treat them the same way that you would treat your frontline staff, your managers, your C-suite, and whatever it might be. And that is to invest in their development. That is to help them grow and be better at what they do. Because if you do that, long term, you will have much better results with the people that they are training and they are mentoring through whatever business you are running. And yes, it may cost money. And we know that everybody's budgets are tight at the moment. We know that on the back end of COVID, nobody wants to spend money. But remember, if you invest, you will get a return on that investment if you invest the right way. Don't just throw money at it and hope it disappears, or hire extra trainers who have better skill sets. It's about developing the people you already have. You already had them in place for a reason. And I think it's important to remember that these people will help you every step of the way. So look, today we spoke about induction training. We spoke about trainers, management, frontline staff, and how we can support them. We are definitely going to be talking about more and more as the weeks come on. I'm looking at my list, especially we've still got so much more to cover when it comes to training. And we kind of alluded to it today, and Rich kind of brought it up already. I think he's been looking at my list of what happens when training goes wrong, and what happens when training doesn't even happen at all. There are so many things like that. And it's how we avoid the poison apples within our groups, so to speak. And again, one thing that's important as well is our LMS throughout training. And Rich, I'm not sure if you've worked on e-learning systems and learning management platforms and things like that, or you've had people that work there. I want to talk about that in the next kind of couple of weeks, but I think it's important to realize and recognize is an LMS and an e-learning platform will never replace a trainer. As much as many companies think they can spend money to replace their trainers, it doesn't work like that. And likewise, a trainer will never replace e-learning platforms. In my opinion, it's about having a blended approach. Have you been in those situations, Rich, where you've had trainers and e-learning platforms kind of work together or work separately?
Yes, as it's evolved over the years, from no LMS into LMS systems, it can work great, but tools are there to be used, and there's the right time and place for them, and they need to be integrated carefully. There's a lot of technology out there and some great tools to bring things to life. LMS works for me, absolutely. We just need to have the skills to actually make sure that you're driving the LMS and it's not driving you. To make sure that you're delivering the right content to the agents. And just on the agents point, a lot of the stuff, I've been through many different, a lot of the outsourcers, you've got India and Philippines and all over the place. The importance of however you're delivering the training, we must always remember the human element of this, is that a lot of the outsourcers, the big outsourcers that are in those, you've got South Africa, you've got India, you've got the Philippines. Some of these areas, these jobs, these agents, this is the source of income for quite a large family. And empowering them to start off a career in contact centers with the essential skills and knowledge for a contact center agent, and allowing them to succeed, is not just supporting the business element of it. Supporting these people makes a huge difference to them and their families. So, I'm sitting in the UK, you're sitting over in the Caribbean, and we'd be all over the world. But actually, for those people that are listening in other areas such as the Philippines and India and some others, how important this role is in getting this training, empowering these people to be able to have a career in contact centers is, because it goes beyond just the individual that you're seeing in front of you. This can be empowering for quite a large family.
Yeah.
And so some of these guys could travel, and they stay around the contact center for a whole week before they go back. And that's the sole, the sole source of income. So there's a much wider piece here for our whole industry.
Yeah. And the contact center industry is huge. As much as you think it's a small market, a small pond, it is not. It is absolutely massive. As you say, India, Philippines, South Africa, Manila, America, Caribbean, South America. And those are just some of the places that, we're talking about. Plus, not to mention your homegrown call centers in your own countries. There is so much out there. And like I say, some see it as just a job and others see it as a career for life. I've been working in the call center industry now for close to 15 years. I don't plan on going anywhere yet. I mean, Rich, I don't want to jump back on your call center tenure, but how long have you been working in call centers now?
Just over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 21, 22 years, I think now. So it's a great industry, the customer service industry. And you know what? It's evolved hugely. We've gone, onshore, offshore. In that time, we've seen the whole telecoms piece come and completely change. We're now talking about gig CXs and all sorts of things. It is evolving at a rapid rate, and it is the customer experience is forever ever elevating, and the requirements from customers, it still increases. It's sort of I feel it's sort of our responsibility to ensure we empower our industry to deliver the customer service that we want to globally, and in everybody's small part, if we push at it, we can do that, and we can change that for people, change and deliver excellent customer service across the globe.
That's what we want. That's what we want. Look, today, Rich, thank you very much for joining us on our episode of Call Center Confidence with Cutter and Catt, episode number 6. I really appreciate you jumping on and kind of sharing your thoughts, your visions, your ideas, and your experiences today. It's been really, really, really insightful. If you have found Rich's information and kind of topics that he's covered today really interesting, you can find him on LinkedIn, I believe. It's linkedin.com/in/Rich Edge, all one word, if I'm correct. Yep. Right. So you can find him there on LinkedIn, or you can find him throughout my profile if you kind of connect that way. But look, it's been great having you on. I really appreciate it, and definitely would love to have you on again in the future, talking as we go through more industries, especially with 20 years worth of experience. I think you've got a lot to share and some really great insights to kind of give people as we continue to progress with these episodes. But in the meantime, as we said before, guys, time and time again, if you're watching now or if you're watching post live, please do not hesitate to share comments, questions, theories, or anything else you want to see in future episodes as we continue with our series of Call Center Confidence. We are officially now on Instagram. We're officially now on Facebook. I think we're going to be hitting Twitter next week when I get around to kind of creating that Twitter group. And of course, we will be having our website live, where we're going to be migrating a lot of our live streams, live feeds, training content, and all of our previous episodes are going to be stored on our website in the coming weeks. So we'll share those future progresses with you as they appear and as they become live. But in the meantime, thank you very much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week for episode number 7, where Jason will be back and we'll be continuing to wrap up this training episode before we move into another area, which is causing some excitement already with people, which is talking about workforce, which is talking about compensation plans, which is talking about HR. It's all coming up in the episodes of Call Center Confidence. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.